mind as you experience it. And it's that peculiar relationship between the creative part of imagining a world, imagining someone.
By any measure, Christopher Nolan has carved out a singular space in modern cinema. A director whose name alone can guarantee box office returns and ignite feverish speculation months before a film's release, he is a rare auteur whose work appeals as much to the Saturday night blockbuster crowd as it does to the cinephile elite. His scripts are often riddled with intellectual puzzles, his narratives contorted through wormholes of time and memory. Yet for all the complex geometry of his plots, Nolan's films hinge on something far more elemental: performance. In the age of CGI and franchise fatigue, Nolan has stayed faithful to the old-school belief that great cinema begins with the actor. "You can have the most ambitious concept in the world," he once told The Independent, "but if the audience doesn't connect with the character, if they don't believe in the human being at the center of it, then none of it matters." Over the course of his career, Nolan has built what amounts to an informal repertory company, a trusted cadre of performers who return film after film to inhabit his cerebral worlds. But beyond these collaborators, his admiration for actors spans the full arc of cinema history, from the Golden Age to the present. In interviews and essays, he has occasionally let slip the names of those whose work he reveres. The result is a picture not only of his artistic preferences, but of the emotional architecture beneath his otherwise austere storytelling. No discussion of Nolan and actors could begin anywhere but with Sir Michael Caine. The two have worked together on 8 films, from Batman Begins to Tenet, and the partnership has become something of a cinematic tradition.
If those are to be the first of many injuries to come, it would be wise to find a suitable excuse. Polo, for instance.
Not learning polo, Alfred.
Nolan refers to Caine as his lucky charm, a term of affection that understates the depth of their creative rapport. He comes in and reads the lines. He doesn't improvise, he doesn't add bits, and yet he somehow makes it better than it was on the page, Nolan told Variety in 2020. It's like magic. He elevates everything. Caine, for his part, has often said Nolan reminds him of directors from an earlier era, organized, authoritative, and respectful. He knows exactly what he wants, Caine once noted, and if you give it to him, he moves on. He doesn't fuss. If Caine is Nolan's most loyal veteran, Cillian Murphy has become his most mesmerizing lead. Their professional relationship, which began with Murphy's haunting turn as Scarecrow in Batman Begins,
Would you like to see my mask?
culminated in Oppenheimer, where Murphy played the titular physicist with a performance that Nolan has called the best work I've ever seen from any actor. I've always known since I first met him almost 20 years ago that he is one of the great actors, not just of his generation, but of all time, Nolan told Lad Bible in 2023. Murphy's appeal lies in his ability to internalize. He acts from the inside out, his eyes forever flickering with some inscrutable calculation. Nolan, a director obsessed with the interior lives of his characters, finds in Murphy a perfect vehicle for ambiguity, intelligence, and moral conflict. There is perhaps no actor better suited to Nolan's preference for restraint and implication than Tom Hardy. In Dunkirk, Hardy spends most of the film behind a pilot's mask.
42, what's your fuel? 50 gallons, over. 50 gallons.
In The Dark Knight Rises, his Bane is nearly indecipherable.
Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne.
Obscured by a respirator and Baroque vocal inflections. Yet both performances resonated deeply. "I love working with actors who can use minimalism to maximum effect," Nolan once said in an interview with Empire. Tom is a master at that. His eyes do more work than some actors can do with an entire monologue. Hardy brings physicality to his roles, but always tempered with an introspective precision. He is, in many ways, the modern answer to the stoic archetypes of old Hollywood, the Gary Coopers and Steve McQueens, updated for an era of psychological nuance. When Nolan cast Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, he was consciously rejecting the camp and theatricality that had plagued the character in previous incarnations. Bale's brooding intensity gave Gotham's vigilante not just muscle, but moral complexity. Bale brings a kind of emotional credibility that anchors even the most extravagant ideas, Nolan said in 2012. He has this laser-like focus. He disappears into the role. Their collaboration on The Prestige further revealed the actor's capacity for duplicity and obsession, traits central to Nolan's thematic palette. Bale, like many of Nolan's favoured actors, excels at conveying the internal fracture beneath a composed exterior. In Oppenheimer, Nolan gave Robert Downey Jr. a role unlike anything he'd played before. As Lewis Strauss, Downey offered a coiled Machiavellian counterpoint to Murphy's tormented protagonist. The performance, widely hailed as a career best, impressed even a director not prone to hyperbole. Robert is an actor of extraordinary intelligence, Nolan told Time magazine. He can calibrate a character's arc with such precision that you almost forget he's performing. That Nolan entrusted Downey with one of Oppenheimer's most intricate roles speaks volumes. The director has suggested he'd wanted to work with him for years. "I always knew there was a lot more to Robert than Tony Stark," he quipped, with trademark understatement. Nolan has never worked with Daniel Day-Lewis, but he has frequently cited him as a touchstone. In one interview, he described Day-Lewis as perhaps the greatest actor of his generation, and singled out There Will Be Blood as a landmark performance. What Nolan admires in Day-Lewis is obvious: the complete immersion, the refusal to compromise, the devotion to craft. It's easy to imagine Day-Lewis in any number of Nolan's roles, an older Cobb in Inception perhaps, or a tortured physicist in Interstellar. Their approaches, methodical, private, bordering on obsessive, seem made for each other. As a long-time admirer of the James Bond franchise, Nolan has not been shy about his admiration for Timothy Dalton, calling him the closest anyone has come to embodying the character from the books. Dalton's Bond was more brutal, more emotionally scarred, and more morally conflicted than his predecessors. These are, of course, the very traits Nolan explores in his own heroes. In interviews, he suggested that License to Kill had a profound influence on his take on Batman.
You're going after Sanchez, aren't you? Are you crazy?
Make a sound, and you're dead.
No license to kill is revoked. Effective immediately.
A vigilante shaped as much by grief and anger as by a sense of justice. Nolan is a keen student of classic Hollywood, and no actor looms larger in his cinematic pantheon than James Stewart. He has cited Stewart's performance in Hitchcock's Vertigo as one of the greatest portrayals of psychological torment on screen.
I want you to follow my wife. I'm afraid some harm may come to her.
I'm supposed to be retired. I don't want to get mixed up in this darn thing. I have acrophobia, which gives me vertigo, and I get dizzy.
Do you believe that someone out of the past, someone dead, can enter and take possession of a living being?
Stewart's genius, according to Nolan, lay in his ability to play the everyman while suggesting darker undercurrents. That duality, normalcy on the surface, rot beneath, is at the core of Nolan's worldview. It's no coincidence that Vertigo is often compared to Memento. Both are spirals of memory and guilt. Though Brando belongs to a more explosive school of acting than Nolan typically employs, the director has acknowledged the revolutionary force of On the Waterfront and The Godfather. He has described Brando's performance as Vito Corleone, as a kind of world-building in itself. Brando's method, while famously erratic, influenced generations of actors, including many Nolan would later cast. The director's appreciation is less about specific technique and more about Brando's commitment to truth at any cost. He never condescended to the character, Nolan said. He just became him. Among the younger generation, Florence Pugh has quickly earned Nolan's respect. In Oppenheimer, she played Jean Tatlock with a quiet ferocity that stood out in a crowded ensemble. Florence is fearless, Nolan told Entertainment Weekly. She's got an old soul and a modern sensibility. She can do in one glance what some actors can't do in a page of dialogue. It's not hard to see her becoming a fixture in Nolan's future projects. With her range and intensity, she fits squarely into his evolving gallery of morally complex, emotionally intelligent characters. While Nolan's films are often associated with scale, collapsing cities, war-torn beaches, interstellar voids, they are, at their core, actor-driven. His scripts may be non-linear and his premises lofty, but the emotional logic always flows from performance. His obsession with time is ultimately an obsession with memory and regret, and it's the actor's task to manifest those invisible forces on screen. "Film is about faces," Nolan once said. "No matter how sophisticated the visuals, what we really connect with is the human face reacting, processing, transforming. That's what keeps us in our seats." His pantheon of favorite actors reflects this belief. They are not necessarily the flashiest or most commercially bankable, but they all share one quality: the ability to suggest depths beyond what the script dictates. Whether it's Murphy's haunted silence, Hardy's simmering menace, or Cane's quiet dignity, Nolan gravitates towards those who speak volumes without shouting. In an industry increasingly reliant on spectacle, Nolan's fidelity to performance feels almost radical. The irony, of course, is that his films are spectacles, but spectacles built on bedrock. Beneath the collapsing dreamscapes, the ticking clocks, and the nuclear firestorms, there is always a face, a real human face, carrying the weight of it all. And that, for Nolan, is the only special effect that truly matters.